there is a nation, and I think you already know who it is, but it's the enemy of the entire Middle East, the enemy of the United States, enemy of Israel, and they have told Israel in no uncertain terms, we want you destroyed. And a matter of fact, we can do it. We can annihilate you, Israel, in 9 minutes. Well, over the weekend, if you've been listening to the news, you know that there was a weekend attack against the largest Saudi refinery and oil field that has sparked fears of oil price increases. Matter of fact, I think probably most across the country, gas may have gone up 10 or 15 cents, depending upon where you are yesterday, even though that refinery seems to be back running. But that attack raises the specter of a full-fledged regional war. President Trump tweeted that the U.S. military was locked and loaded and would retaliate once the source of the attack was fully known and after they negotiated and kind of planned a response in alignment with Saudi Arabia. So there's a lot happening there, too. But, Jimmy, let me go to you at this point. Tell us what you know about what happened over the weekend. Some say that missiles or drones came from Yemen. Some say Iran. Some say cruise missiles. Some say drones. Some say both. What do you know at this point? How can you update us on this? Because it's obviously developing and the impacts are going to be significant.
By the way, Sam, let me just mention before I give you the answer to your question that refinery was not only the largest in Saudi Arabia, that refinery is the largest in the entire world and a great producer of oil coming out of the Middle East to meet the needs of the rest of the world. Now, as it relates to your question, I believe it was both cruise missiles and drones that were fired. My intelligence reports are saying that the cruise missiles actually came from Khuzestan in southern Iran, which is in the heartland of their oil production facilities as well. And the drones were fired from Anbar in western Iraq. Now, I've not heard a lot about that, but the intelligence operation that I have communications with say that is absolute. And remember, on Saturday, right after it did happen, you had President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and bin Salman of Saudi Arabia on the telephone talking and sharing intelligence reports, etc. But the attack was staged by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and they are the major players. They're the ones that caused it. They're denying it, of course. That's deniable plausibility that they are not the ones doing it, but they were. They staged it, and that's how it came about.
Jimmy, as we continue to watch what's developing over there, we know that our Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, is over there, and he is trying to work out something. My question to you is, well, it's twofold. Number one, what is in his mind? What is he trying to work out over there? And then secondly, it seems as though that Iran really does want war. They've threatened all of the United States military bases within 1,200 miles of Iran since this past weekend. And so with our Secretary of State being over there and with what it appears to be the desire of Iran to establish a war, where do you think this is going to go, and how soon do you think it's going to happen?
I got to tell you, Gary, that I was not surprised that there was an attack on Saudi Arabia and their oil production there. This is probably a very smart move as it relates to Iran, using their surrogate operations to have most of the attack take place and be the ones that perpetrated this attack on the Saudi oil fields. So I wasn't surprised at all. And in fact, this attack affected the entire world. What better way than to cut out about half of the oil production out of Saudi Arabia? We've already talked about the oil prices raising all across the United States and, in essence, around the world. And Iran does not want a face-to-face war with either the United States or Israel. I believe Mike Pompeo, who's the Secretary of State, is there trying to work out with Saudi Arabia how they're going to form a coalition between the United States and Israel to make this thing come together. And therefore, they need to be able to respond. They must have a response pretty soon as well.
And that response, Jimmy, I agree. I mean, I think that something is going to have to occur. And again, speculation on this. If Saudi Arabia takes the lead, then we would be there in a support role, but we would be there. Israel would probably be pulled there, but see, therein lies a lot of questions as the whole thing unfolds. You mentioned that you said for sure that some missiles, cruise missiles, likely came from Iran itself. I mean, I hadn't seen that. I'd seen some things from Iraq, but you're saying some things actually came from Iran. That's what the thought is?
Yes, sir. There in southern Iran, that's where these cruise missiles were fired from. The drones were fired from the western part of Iraq because of the Shiite influence in what's going on in Iraq. Remember, the Iranians are the Shiite persuasion as the Islamic world is concerned. And so they have a powerful influence there. They have the Revolutionary Guard in Iraq, numbers over 100,000 men, their leadership there. The Iranians want to play a key role in the rebuilding of the Iraqi government, so Iraq is pretty much obligated to go along with them. And Iran, well, they were close enough to Saudi Arabia, and they could come together. Look, we've got to remember this whole thing between Iran and Saudi Arabia has eschatological influence upon it. What do I mean? Eschatology, the study of end times. Now, not only do we talk about prophecy, eschatology on this program, but both Iran and Saudi Arabia have their own eschatology. However, it's a bit different. Let me talk about Iran just for a moment. The Iranians believe that if Saudi Arabia has a king named Salman, he is killed, the Iranian Mahdi, the Messiah of Iran, comes to power to rule the world. Most likely the Saudis are going to be involved in this. They have a different persuasion eschatologically, but that's why Iran, that's the motive behind Iran going after Saudi Arabia and, of course, doing whatever they can to harm their livelihood from the oil production that they make.
All right, Jimmy,
there.
let me interrupt you. So you raised a point I want to clarify with you. From a Shiite position, they believe that they want war because they have said, Iran has said, we want to make that Gulf red with blood. We want to make the streets run with blood in the Middle East because that will bring back the Mahdi, their Messiah, what we say is the biblical Antichrist. But you just said there that they also believe that if King Salman, which I would assume at this point, in effect, is young ruler Salman, maybe, but clarify that if he is killed, that will also trigger the return. Build that out just a little bit if you could.
Yes, in fact, it is the case. The king, bin Salman, who is the young crown prince, ultimately to become the king, is not the king. His father is the king, and of course his name is Salman. Bin Salman means son of Salman, and in the Arabic language. And so he is in that position. There has been a number of films produced, especially during the times of Ahmadinejad in Iran. And if you watch those films, they're available on the internet. If you watch that film, it brings to the attention when there's a king named Salman. He was not king at that point in time when this film was made, but it's a film on eschatology backed by the Iranian Shiite Muslim philosophy. And they believe if Salman is the king, he's killed. That then sparks that appearance, the resurrection of the Mahdi, as would any catastrophic event.